Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about IT and e-commerce in United States of America. The agenda is as such that I'm going to begin with an introduction, then talk about e-commerce in US, then let's see about the e-commerce revenues, the statistics of e-commerce and the new startup companies and some technical details. So e-commerce, when we talk about it, it is everywhere around us. For example, in all sorts of businesses, in fintech solutions, in retail, in social media, in news groups, in every business. Looking at the global retail e-commerce sales, we see that by 2021, the global e-commerce sales was 4.8 trillion US dollars. And narrowing down to US, we know that the e-commerce market in US has been constantly evolving over the last decade. Retail e-commerce sales in US are projected to grow at a fast pace in the coming years, going from roughly 470 billion US dollars in 21 to over 560 billion US dollars in 25. If you look at the retail e-commerce revenue in the United States from 2017 to 25, you have the chart in front of you. However, let's look at the latest figure, that by 2022 we are looking at 875 billion US dollars, and it is projected to grow up to 1.3 trillion US dollars by 2025. An overview of the market tells us that there is cumulative growth rate of 7% from 2020 till 2024. We also see that this 7% of cumulated aggregated growth rate translates into 560 billion US dollars in 25. The top players, of course, everyone knows: Amazon, eBay, Walmart, and Target. The top online stores in the US by e-commerce net sales are as such that Amazon holds the greatest market share, and Target in this comparison is the lowest. However, it is still looking at 1.6 billion US dollars. In percentage, like I mentioned, that Amazon holds 55% of the market share. The top segments are, for example, fashion and apparel, which are 29% of all e-commerce sales. We see electronics and media as 22%. We see toys, hobbies, and do-it-yourself products at 21%. The online retail in the US market, in the e-commerce sector particularly, customer satisfaction with online retail sales in the US is relatively high. By 2023, the number of social commerce buyers in the United States is forecast to reach 100 million. I must mention that social commerce means that all of the e-commerce that is channeled through social media. On the contrary, all the e-commerce that is channeled through the use of mobile phones and tablets is called m-commerce or mobile shopping. A growing trend within the e-commerce market in the US is the increasing presence of mobile shopping. The average value spent per order while shopping from a cell phone is also catching up when compared to desktop computers, even though conversion rates still lag in the mobile segment. Shipping and logistics providers are, of course, so many in the US. However, the top shipping and service provider is USPS, the United States Postal Service, which holds around 55% of the market share, followed by UPS very closely by 52%, and FedEx is 43%. Now let's look at the top online stores by category. I will not go through all of them, but the opticians website, for example, is 1800contacts.com, which is the top. Pharmacies include CVS.com, advanced auto parts in the car parts stores, and so on. You can see on the screen. Speaking of the e-commerce activity, so 85% of people who are online searched for products through any device. 95% of these products of these people visited an online store. 66% shopping app usage was done using a phone or a tablet. 80% of these people purchased anything online through any device, and 48% of these consumers purchased some goods through a phone or a tablet. If you look at these demographics by age, we see that the highest demographics are for the age bracket of 35 to 44. Out of all 83% of people coming from this age bracket made some purchase. E-commerce spending breakdown in the US market is as such that $127 billion were raised from fashion and beauty products, and digital music, for example, through Spotify or through Amazon Music or through iTunes, it produced $8.2 billion, and video games, for example, produced $27 billion. We see that the growth in these categories, for example, looks as such that in the travel, mobility and accommodation, there was a decrease of 53%, but mind you, this also reflects the COVID-19 impact, and people were of course locked down during several phases of the year. We also see the increase in, for example, food and personal care as 32%. And if you look at the new startup companies, we see that the total number of startups has been increasing and decreasing. We see a peak somewhere around 2014 and 15. However, by 2020, we see a lot of decrease, of course, because of COVID-19 impact. The total number of patent registrations in the United States by the tech sector, particularly in Silicon Valley, looks as such that we see that by 2021, the total number of patents being registered was rather less than 2020, but we see that the trend has more or less been upwards throughout the last 30 years. And if we talk about some expectations and technicalities from the general perspective of how e-commerce business works. Having a website, of course, is one of the main requirements of being in the e-commerce industry. However, having a website with the domain name suffix such as .us is very essential because it helps you to go up in the Google search volume index, for example. It also has this effect of looking like a local company rather than just a generic .com. However, there are several companies which provide this .us domain name hosting. One of them is Marcaria. There are several others like GoDaddy.com or Namecheap and many others. There are nevertheless some requirements for being able to register a .us domain, and this is not about hosting. This is particularly only about the domain name. The requirements are such that one has to be a natural person, a citizen of US. The owner of this domain name can be an entity or an organization or a company. However, the owner can be a foreign entity or organization that has a presence in the US. Moving on to a typical e-commerce order process, we see it as such that there is usually a website which is led upon through some marketing or social media or through any channels, and on this website naturally some orders are placed, and using some fintech solutions, some payment gateways, some payments are made. These payments are of course processed, and then an order has been placed which is automatically sent to the warehouse or drop shipping or whatever channel or however your business model looks like. On the other hand, your website engine would also like to record this activity for analytical purposes. It would also like to produce some sort of receipt, some email, some using some backend in order to make it work seamlessly for the user. A typical, let's say, backend and front-end solution looks similar to this. That usually going from right to left, we see that in the backend there's a database management system. If there is an existing one, then we also use some legacy systems. In the middle tier, of course, you will see an application server where the web server tries to connect to the database many times through searching, through gallery views, through fintech solutions to show the inventory, to check whether there are any items available or not. This of course connects to the web server, which for a thin client, for example, for a regular consumer, it usually goes through several firewalls or cloud services or hosting services, where it through this cloud or bubble of internet, it reaches the customer's smartphone or their computer using some sort of seamless technologies, TCP/IPs or browsers and several protocols actually these days. The B2B solution normally looks a bit different. B2B solutions are particularly designed for those companies, so they don't go through a lot of checks and balances through firewalls, through security managements. Rather, it is more direct and less user-friendly because it is custom-made for the particular business and for the particular need. Usually, an e-commerce website can hit very quickly from just a startup to a large size business, because almost everyone is online these days, and the scalability of the consumers attraction is rather large. Having such a system means that as your website or as your solution becomes more and more available to more consumers, it has to be very reliable as well. Looking quickly at the security, it should be very safe against hackers, because even bots can try to get into your system. Similarly, we should never forget the total cost of ownership, because several let's say several of these expenditures are one time, rather several are subscription fees. So you might end up paying a lot in the long run if you don't plan it accordingly. So like I mentioned earlier, let's look at some examples. So looking at the total cost of ownership, the initial investments may be such as development of your website or app, some plugins required, some integrations required, and some one-off fees for servers or from platforms that you're using. Whereas there may be many ongoing subscription fees, such as infrastructure, the domains that you purchase per year, the licenses that you buy, the transactions that are being made for your fintech solutions through some payment gateways, some maintenance work that you might need a team for, or you outsource a solution to, or some marketing that you would like to do it continuously, and some unexpected unknown failures or hurdles in the business. In conclusion, so analyzing the situation, because we were focused more for the US market, it is evident that the market's magnitude is enormous, and regardless of the competition, market size can accommodate newcomers. Entering the market with the right strategy and business plan will deliver a tremendous success.